the second palace of the Ottoman Sultans, Dolmabahce, and the bicontinental city in the world, the only one across the Bosphorus, the bridge joining Europe to Asia. The city where I come from, and the Seraglio Peninsula where the Sultans originally lived in Topkapi Palace, with the Sultan's Justice Tower, and Saint Sophia, church, mosque, and a museum in our times, right next to the Galata Bridge, over the Golden Horn, Mosque of Suleiman the Magnificent, and the Blue Mosque with its 6 minarets. Suleymaniye, the largest one in town. Across the Galata Bridge, we are looking at the new mosque next to the Spice Bazaar. The spices are all sold in that bazaar. Into the famous Pera Palace Hotel, where Agatha Christie spent 11 days and nights to write her famous novel, Murder on the Orient Express. The old lift in this 1892 old lift, as we go up to the 4th floor, in order to hopefully see the room is available where she spent the time to write her famous murder novel. This is still operational from 1892. This old elevator takes us to the 4th floor. Following the bellboy, looking outside from the room of Agatha Christie, room 411 now is open. As we go in, we can see her photograph above the shelf where the books are on display written by her. And Tamara Rand, the famous psychic, who actually found where the key, which was missing, underneath the floor, as we will see it very soon. This all happened in 1979 when Hollywood filmmakers were making Murder on the Orient Express. And then, since they found out that this is the room where she had spent the time to write the novel, it became a worldwide famous hotel, and ever since that time the room has been sold forever. And the key is in the picture, and several newspaper clippings showing the story, Christie's Istanbul Visit Unsolved. And the key was found underneath the parquet floor right next to this Turkish carpet in the corner with which the story was unraveled. Going down the staircase of this antique hotel into the back streets of the Spice Bazaar, the side street quite colorful with the fruits of the time, and the back streets quite interesting, as this takes us into the Rüstem Pasha Mosque, one of the smallest mosques from 1560, world famous with its red tiles, and these are the famous Iznik Nicaea tiles, and some examples of which we will be seeing as we come closer. This panel, unfortunately, is not all intact because the thieves sometimes get to them. This is the famous Istanbul tulip, the red tulips and the blue carnations as flowers of Istanbul. As we come into the Mosque of Rüstem Pasha, which is beautifully wall-to-wall carpeted, these are not handmade carpets anymore, it's a dying art, unfortunately. We're looking at the dome of this Rüstem Pasha, who was the Grand Vizier of Suleiman the Magnificent around 1560, when the mosque was completed by famous master architect Sinan. The prayers niche, beautifully decorated with the Iznik tiles. This is the Vase of Life design, 5 panels side by side, very decorative flowers, and the honeycomb design over the prayers niche, the direction which Muslims turn to. And this old British clock takes us around the town in front of Spice Bazaar, very colorful, street life on a rainy day in Istanbul. We are looking at the station where the Orient Express once used to come, built by a German architect, opposite from today's McDonald's and the hamburger place McDonald's and Burger King. We are looking at the station built by a German architect. And now we arrive at Topkapi Palace, the palace of the Ottoman Sultans. The doorway full of groups trying to get in, hard to get tickets. And the Ottoman Empire, which a vast empire it was on 3 different continents. Sultan's Justice Tower, where he himself was giving away justice, next to the Kubalte, which is the Tuesday's meeting room in between the Prime Minister and his ministers, and the cypress tree next to one which is the fig tree grafted together. Piney figs they become, and the underground cistern nearby, as this is the Acropolis of the old Byzantium, where the palace later on was founded, the kitchens of the palace with its beautiful chimneys, 1107 cooks, and the place where the Sultan's throne was placed. The Turkish baths of the Sultan with the 2 domes in the back is where they filmed the movie Topkapi with Melina Mercouri, Peter Ustinov getting the Oscar in 1964. The 18th century library of the palace is visited by everyone, and the Holy Relics department in the corner of the 3rd courtyard, which opens to the best view in town, overlooking the Asia Minor side across the Sea of Marmara with all the ships crossing. The Mecidiye kiosk from 1850 is where definitely the best view in town is, with the walls of Constantinople of the 5th century by the Seraglio waterfront. Sultan's chief cook was also his taster living in the apartment, and the outside courtyard of Saint Sophia, once upon a time a church to become a mosque when the minaret was added, as well as some internal changes, and eventually in the last 70 years it has been a museum in our times. Theodosius's Saint Sophia is the 2nd Saint Sophia, which is underneath the 3rd one and the present-day one, as we're talking about 3 different churches at the entrance into these galleries where a sarcophagus is kept, and on the doorway you can see the missing cross pieces, reminding us of the iconoclastic age when they were locally destroyed by the Byzantines, and the porphyry stand next to this baptismal font. As we enter into the museum, we can see this beautiful mosaic from the 10th century AD, as the other golden tessera which we have covering the ceiling in this inner narthex. We have the 3 doors to the right, 3 in the center, with the imperial gateway, Jesus Christ seated on the heavenly throne holding the Bible, and the side doors where the other religious people walked in. As we come into the Saint Sophia Museum, we have the restoration going on in the last 11 years, and the urns from Pergamon and the wish-making column of Constantinople, which has been the very favorite part of the museum in our times, with the beautiful capitals and the prayers box next to the imperial box, with the beautiful mosaic in the apse next to Allah written on the right in Arabic and Prophet Muhammad written on the left, and Virgin Mary with Christ child, reminding us of the tolerance between religions this city has enjoyed. This 10th century mosaic with Virgin Mary, Jesus Christ in the center, Justinian to the left, Constantine, the founder of Constantinople, to the right, reminding us that the Byzantines were about 400 years earlier in Renaissance than their Italian counterparts. 2200-year-old bronze door from St. Paul's Tarsus, still being used in our times, and the prophecy of Prophet Mohammed that one day Constantinople would be conquered. And the beautiful blue mosque, and before we get to the mosque, people selling water as well as the chestnuts, next to the men selling corn on the cob with their historical dresses, brings color to the region. Blue Mosque with its 6 minarets from a distance, and Saint Sophia with its 4, next to the beautiful fountains, as well as the 16th century baths of Roxalana. The Firuza Mosque is right opposite from Kaiser Wilhelm II's fountain, and the corn on the cob and the men selling pretzels, with the ancient obelisks in the Hippodrome, is where Ibrahim Pasha Palace stands in our times. The old Ibrahim Pasha Palace of the 16th century is today's Islamic Fine Arts Museum, with some of the world's best kept 16th century Uşak carpets. The bird design on the left, as well as the medallion design and the prayers niche design, are some of those most valuable carpets we have in this section. Especially the red is out of madder root and blue is out of the indigo plant. These are some Selçuk carpets dating back to 1221, so they're almost coming to be 800 years old very soon. They're from Konya, the Alaaddin Keykubat Mosque and Mausoleum being kept in this museum with the beautiful Kufic borderline from the Arabic script. The Lorenzo Lotto design of the 16th century on this old Uşak is the result of the painter's work, Lorenzo Lotto, the Italian painter, as well as Hans Holbein, the German one, all very famous of the 16th century painters. Inside the courtyard of the Blue Mosque, we have the Harmony of Domes with the old ablution fountain. And when we enter into the mosque, we have beautiful stained glass windows reaching towards the dome dating back to 1616. A mosque that took 7 years to build, with some wall-to-wall carpets, not the handmade ones which are nowadays in the Islamic Fine Arts Museum. The writing above the entrance gate, El Kasebu Habibullah, meaning God loves those who work. We have Orhan Gazi, the second founder of the Ottoman Empire, en route to Iznik, Nicaea, the ancient capital of the Byzantine Empire. The Senate Court, which is down underneath the lake in our times, is also where the first St. Sophia Church was, where the first Ecumenical Council was held in 325 AD. A tile shop just opposite from the old 16th century kilns, which are being excavated in our times. Iznik tiles, or pottery, are the best tiles from the Orient of all times, according to the experts. The current St. Sophia that we have today was where the 7th Ecumenical Council was held in 787 AD. It was also used for a time as a mosque, with the addition of that one minaret next to it, and in our times it is being used as a museum. The Nilüfer Hatun Medrese in our times is kept as a museum, where some of the artifacts found in this region are now on display. Like the beautiful tiles of the 16th century, the Ottoman gold coins, as well as the Byzantine ones, and this pot where people were buried some 5,000 years before our times. The Green Mosque with the beautiful minaret, all green tiles, leads us into the next town, which is Umurbey, the town where the third Turkish president was born, lived, and is buried. Where the kids are now enjoying themselves is the old burial ground of the third president, who lived in this house in the 19th century next to Ataturk and himself, showing his town. We're now in Bursa at the Green Mosque, and the mausoleum with some of the houses in the vicinity dating back to the 15th century. As we go up the steps into the Green Mausoleum, we have the burial ground of the 5th Ottoman Sultan Mehmet Çelebi and his family members. Beautifully tiled and inscribed in Arabic, as some of the early Iznik tiles are from, these were brought here as the artists from Tabriz in Iran, they brought the art and taught the artists in Nicaea. The entrance to the mosque of Mehmet Çelebi with the beautiful honeycomb designs and the keystone with the Turkish triangles, and the mosque that is elevated in the inverted T-plan with the Sultan's kiosk and the green tiles at the entrance. The old Cocoon Caravanserai from the outside leading to the largest mosque in town, Grand Mosque, today has been turned into a cafe. In the old days, this is where the cocoons were being sold, especially in the month of July, for the making of Turkish pure silk carpets. This is where they also sell in our times silk ties, shirts in any one of these kiosks. The entrance to the Ulu Jami from 1399 with the internal ablution fountain and a glass dome separating this section from the rest of the mosque is a place with beautiful calligraphy, and Kufic scripture especially is very important about this mosque, with the prayers niche and Allah written from both sides symmetrically, and the Sultan's monogram leads us to this Ottoman tree which is by the Mount Olympus, a tree that is 592 years old in 1999, when the Ottoman Empire, if it had lived, would have been 700 years old, reminding us of the Ottoman 36th Sultan dynasty that run this country. The two domed 14th century thermal baths and Karagöz and Hacivat, two puppet screen characters, Süleyman Çelebi, Osman and Orhan Gazi, as father and son, founders of the Ottoman Empire, who are buried here in Bursa, the second capital of the Ottoman dynasty. Muradiye complex next to the Şehadet Cami, and the oldest mosque in town is the Mosque of Alaaddin, dating back to 1326, the year when the city was taken by the Ottoman Turks, with the stained glass windows, the Turkish triangles, and the wall-to-wall carpets. In this very small, very cute mosque, we have also the outside, where some of the Byzantine artifacts have been recycled. The original minaret from 1326, and Alaaddin himself is buried. The site of the Granicus River is where Alexander had his first victory on Asia Minor in 334 BC. Today it's known as the town of Karabiga. This was really the river of no return for Alexander, as he never made it back to Macedonia on his way back from India. A wooden horse in Troy that changed the course of history. The water pipes and the city walls for the sixth city of Troy, the Troy of King Priamos, where Achilles fought with Hector, and the interesting walls which lead us into the town. When you go around the corner, it becomes impossible to attack the city with a battering ram. When you come around, you meet the city wall. As we go into the town of Troy, we have several artifacts lying around which has been excavated since 1870s by Schliemann, the German architect, and it has been under restoration in the last 10 years as they are rebuilding some of the old artifacts like these mud brick homes. The Megaron houses of Troy, one city on top of the other, as we have 9 cities, and a ramp that leads you into the second city of Troy, where the treasures of King Priamos were found, and walls of a sixth city palace and the sacrificial area for the town of Troy. The Odeon Theater of the Nine City of Troy leads us to the door where the fight between Achilles and Hector took place, and that is known as the South Gate. Hector. Nearby Troy is the Intepe mayor's office, where the latest protocol that was signed between Intepe mayor and Nemi mayor, which is near Rome in Italy. Italians have discovered that their ancestors go back to Troy. So this is a very important message to all the old Romans in the world. It's time to go home and to go to Troy. Also, across from the Turkish-Greek borderline, where we have the township of Kavala, is where some of the people of this town of Intepe moved to the township of Aspravalta. So these two mayors have signed these documents declaring these two cities as sister cities. A very important message in this troubled part of the world, bringing different groups of people together and declaring them friendship in between themselves. Çanakkale is now where we have to go back to Istanbul over the strait in order to reach into Yarımburgaz caves. Off this busy highway by the Küçükçekmece Lake, we have this ancient cave that has been recently dug out by the Canadian McGill University people in 1989. They have recently DNA tested the findings, which are now in the Archaeological Museum in Istanbul, declaring this place to be 400,000 years old, the oldest settlement in all of Europe. Along the seafront town of Tekirdağ, along the shores of the Sea of Marmara, we have a mobile 7-Eleven in front of the Rákóczi house. Prince Rákóczi was a freedom fighter who lost to the Habsburg family in 1711 for the freedom of his country, Hungary, and then had to fled his country, and he found retreat in the old Ottoman Empire, first coming to Istanbul and then to Tekirdağ, and he lived in this house between the years of 1720 and 35. When he died here, they turned this place into a museum, which is what it is, with some old Turkish carpets of the 18th century, decorating it with these divans and the furniture all belonging to the 18th century. Beautiful stained glass windows and colored pottery, as well as the daily usage room. And we move on to the Maidos Bay, en route to Çanakkale once again, completing the northern portion. We're now getting ready to enter the Anzac Museum in Dardanelles. This is the friendliest war of all times, as some experts have called it, where almost some 600,000 men either were killed, or they were missing in action, or they were wounded. This fight took place in Gallipoli, starting in the month of March 18, 1915. But then the Anzac landing took place on the 25th morning of April 1915. These are some of those relics belonging to those soldiers who were wounded or lost their lives fighting for their countries. The idea of the Çanakkale-Gallipoli campaign was to go through Dardanelles and make a link with the Russians. As the Allied force could not succeed this, that really brought an end to the regime of the Tsar, and in 1917 they pulled out of the war, and then the Bolsheviks took over in Russia. These are some of those things found in the excavated sections of Gallipoli, a war when it was fought in the township of the Anzac Landing area. It really was in between the trenches, some 25 feet apart. And now we are going to the Anzac portion. Those heroes that shed their blood and lost their lives, you are now lying in the soil of a friendly country. Therefore, rest in peace. There is no difference between the Johnnies and the Mehmets to us, where they lie side by side here in this country of ours. You, the mothers who sent their sons from faraway countries, wipe away your tears. Your sons are now lying in our bosom and are in peace. After having lost their lives on this land, they have become our sons as well. Said by Ataturk in 1934. The Australians and the New Zealanders, shortly known as the Anzacs, landed here on the morning of the 25th April 1915. And we have their memorial at the Anzac Bay today, a place which is highly visited by the Anzacs in the last 90 years. We also have some old reminiscence from the Second World War when we follow the Anzac coastline in our times. As this cement bunker which was used during the Second World War. This hero, the Turkish hero, carrying the wounded British Lieutenant John Casey from his trench to the other side to bring him to safety. And he later on became the Australian Governor-General in 1967, Lieutenant John Casey. The Lone Pine Memorial for the Australians is one of the biggest memorials in the Anzac area. And the Mehmetçik Monument leading you to the 57th Regiment was led by Mustafa Kemal Atatürk to become Turkey's first president after the Battle of Independence was finished. Hüseyin Kaçmaz, oldest Turkish Gallipoli veteran with his grand-granddaughter. At Çanakkale, statue of Atatürk, where the turning of the war was decided on the 9th of August in 1915. It's a short distance when you look to the left side where the Saros Bay is, that's the Aegean Sea, and to the right of this monument is Gallipoli, and that is Çanakkale in the front. These are the Turkish trenches where Atatürk and his comrades were waiting on that day. If the Allied forces had been able to go over this hillside, it was downhill all the way on the other side to Çanakkale and to Gallipoli, and that would have brought the ending of the war as far as the Allies were concerned. On the Asia Minor side of Gallipoli, we have the Nusret mine-laying ship as a model displayed in the museum we have just by the waterfront. It is a model. The real one is in Tarsus, and it's incredible that it is not in its original place, that the mayor of Tarsus has displayed it in his town, and this town is also world famous in our times. Because this is where St. Paul had lived and was born, and this is the well out of which he drank himself. As the visitors in our time are tasting the same water from the well, not far away from the Cleopatra Gate, where Cleopatra met with Marcus Antony in 41 BC. En route to Pergamon, we have this olive oil factory turned into a museum in our times. Olive oil processing has been a very important income for the people of this land, at least in the last 2,000 years. The Romans were using this kind of a screw, which is being used in our times to make the olive paste. The Acropolis in Pergamon and the entrance to the museum where some important artifacts in Pergamon, today's Bergama, are on exhibit. Beautiful mosaic floor and Hadrian's statue, a rooster and the corner in the Turkish Oriental style with some Turkish carpets as well as kilns decorating the floors as well as the settees. With beautiful 19th century Pergamon carpet examples in this museum. Different designs basically out of red, which is madder root, blues out of the indigo plant, and geometric patterns were used by the Pergamon nomadic people. And the model of the Zeus temple, which was taken away from the Acropolis in the old days by the Germans, as we now climb up these steps to get into the ancient town of Pergamon for a short visit of the town. Step by step, as we go up to the top, we have this area where this wishing well is the ancient silo, which today is a place where people throw coins, and if the coin stands on that pillar, then their wishes will come true. The beautiful Trajan monument at the top, which has been recently restored, is where you have the fantastic view towards the sea, the Aegean Sea, 25 kilometers away, located on the hilltop of the Acropolis, the steepest hill and the steepest theater in the world, dating back to the 2nd century AD. And the substructure with the beautiful Roman arches still in good condition, and the theater right next to it. The Temple of Zeus is where the trees are, and now happens to be in Berlin in the museum. The road to the Asklepion Hospital, once upon a time a major hospital. Today's visitors come into this tunnel of therapy in order to reach from the thermal pools in the old days in the direction of their hospital building. A corridor that extends some 80 meters with 12 holes at the top, reminding us of the 12 Greco-Roman gods. And healing was coming from the above. This round hospital building, as we walk around it, is right next to the Temple of Asclepius, the god of healing in Roman period. It is a 2nd century AD structure is what we're looking for, and in the meantime let us remember this hospital and this tunnel of therapy was used for at least 600 years, and this is the same holes from the top. As we make our way towards the bus, we have the symbol of Asclepius. Town of Bergama, right next to the red courtyard with the Turkish carpets being displayed by the side. The red courtyard was also one of the 7 churches of Asia Minor. The bridge which is bringing us into Alianoi is an old Roman thermal settlement which is under excavation, where in the near vicinity of the ancient town of Alianoi they're building a dam, and if it's not properly handled, this town will be underwater very soon. This is inside the thermal spring. We still have hot water coming in the next room, which will be rather foggy by the time we look inside, and you can definitely feel this 40 degrees Celsius water as it's ready to go in for a dip in times. The outside, which is still under excavation since 1992 with the old sewage system, and in the next 5 kilometers away from here is where the dam will be built. All that is needed, I understand, is a wall to separate it from the dam area, and that will cost something like $5 million to save the old thermal town, Roman town, Alianoi, which is kept underwater, unfortunately, full of mosaics. And it is such a shame to find that so much can only be done in our times, because Turkey is full of these ancient sites which really requires assistance. By the near town of Kırkağaç, we have the honeydew melons, and the near town of Izmir Smyrna from the Hilton Hotel in the vicinity of the old Agora, the marketplace, dating back to the 2nd century AD. This area will soon be revitalized, and all the substructure will come to being after this restoration work is over. In the near high hill of Kadife Kale, we have a magnificent view of the Izmir Harbor, Turkey's major harbor for exportation. The Hilton and the other side, and the downtown of Izmir, ancient Smyrna, Church of Saint Polycarp, who was actually martyred in 156 AD. And in this fresco at the top, we can see him being martyred. They set him to fire, which didn't work. They stabbed him to death, as the Romans tortured the people of Smyrna in those years. Saint Polycarp was a very important saint in the region. From the Church of Saint Polycarp, where we have fantastic frescoes in the 17th century church, which has gone under restoration, the resurrection scene. We move on to the nearest town of Sardis, another one of the 7 churches of Revelation, in the 3rd century AD synagogue, the largest after the one in Jerusalem with the double lions. An overall look towards the gymnasium with the indoor pool, the old Roman high school dating back to the 2nd century AD, which was beautifully restored in the 1970s with beautiful fluted columns. This is where Roman boys went to school between the ages of 6 to 16. In the town of Sardis, King Croesus, as rich as Croesus, the first money was minted in gold coins. So he became the richest man of all times. The first bank in the history of mankind is from this town of Sardis, not far from Smyrna, Kuşadası, where the ships come in to visit the beautiful town of Ephesus, the queen of all the ancient cities, as we go up the steps into the Odeon Theater, where the Roman senators discussed business and had good times listening to music. Where the orchestra space is kept in the semicircular area at the bottom. This is a 2nd century AD restored section, a city with beautiful Ionic column, and when you turn around, the curvature of the 2nd century AD. It has been excavated since 1863, and this is the Nike, the goddess of the tennis shoes in our times, but the goddess of victory in the old days. This is Koureiti Street in front of us, a major street in the ancient town of Ephesus. And these chiseled marble blocks to slow the traffic coming downhill, like speed bumps we have in our times, and the major route showing the fountain of Trajan with his right foot next to the globe. They knew the world was round. Ever since the times of Trajan, that goes back to some 1800 years before our times. As we enter into the Scholastikia baths, the baths for the rich, Lady Scholastikia with this statue was the one who had it restored around 400 AD. The underground pipes for water and heat in the Scholastikia baths. Hadrian's Temple, 2nd century AD, the best of the Roman period. And in the background, the Medusa head, and Tyche, leading us into the latrines, which could seat 43 people, as we see today. Celsius Library, and the door leading us into the 3rd century BC Hellenistic Agora. The menorah and the 2 halls where the father Polymianus was buried. The beautiful entrance leading us to this marble street with this interesting footprint which we will be seeing, showing us that if you keep walking along this pavement, a little bit later on your left will be the red light district of the town. The road finally leads us into this 25,000-seater big theater in Ephesus, where St. Paul made this speech. The silversmith's ride, it all happened right here in Ephesus. At the top of Ephesus on Mount Nightingale, we have Virgin Mary's house, where every Sunday they have Mass, and people gather here to drink the holy water of Virgin Mary. As well as some people come here to tie the white ribbons in order to find the right husbands. As we go downhill with the Virgin Mary statue on the left, we approach the ancient town of Ephesus in front. The city with the famous Temple of Artemis and Artemis statue with the birds showing the abundance and fertility. Nearby hilltop is where we have St. John buried, and people visiting in the baptistry having their baptismal ceremonies. They're also ready to visit where John is buried. After writing the Apocalypse in Patmos, this is where he died in his late age and was buried at this very location. The Whispering Gallery, leading us towards the top of the hill. And this church was built by Isidoro, the architect who built St. Sophia in Constantinople as well. The first Turkish carpet ever made in central Anatolia, coming from Asia Minor, 2,300 years old, this Pazarik carpet with the hunting design, a brand new example with hunters and geometric designs, is how the art of Turkish carpet making has come to our times. Girls using these looms in the way they make their carpets. They also make kilims. Kilims are woven, while rugs are knotted. That is the easiest differentiation between those with the pile and those without the pile. A pure silk carpet, which this lady is tying with 1451 double knots to the square inch fineness from Hereke, and when each line is finished, the lady will beat it down with the iron comb, and then she will be ready to trim the excess pile when each line is finished. And that is how a small pure silk carpet will be finished, which will take approximately a year and a half to finish. And that is a hereke, the finest pure silk rugs in the world, with the central medallion. One must be born talented in order to be able to make these rugs in this style, and that is the excess material. In the vicinity we have beautiful peach trees blooming, while the lady is getting ready to show us how the pure silk fiber is obtained from the natural cocoons, using a interesting sponge, boiling water, and she works real fast, getting all the fibers out of these cocoons, and she will soon be tying it to the nearest machine, which will be pulling these fibers out one after the other to show us how the pure silk fiber is obtained. Imagine when you pull out the fibers of one cocoon in the good quality, you will have 1 mile long filament. And those are the dancing cocoons in the hot boiling water. Along this roadside where this truck is carrying Turkish-made Renault cars, this town is also making carpets. It is not ideal to buy carpets off the road unless you're an expert. This is the group where the Hacıbeder rugs are made. Also in the vicinity of Ephesus, One of the major other crafts is the jewelry making, which has been passing from fathers to sons. And finally, we are watching Master Oz giving us a tour of the castle of Bodrum, ancient Halikarnassos in the background. He has been in this museum in the last 40 years. Turkish tourism cannot thank him enough for all the works he has done. It was a glorious day. Our guides, including myself, at that disposal. Finally, this is my grandchild, Ömer. As you see, he is working real hard, getting ready for a future tour. If one of us, the guides, is not ready for your next visit to Turkey, hopefully he'll be the one in charge by showing you the way. God bless his heart, and I'd like to thank you for your wonderful audience.